Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our late week show that is going to drop, I have to check the date, on Friday, September 22nd. We're largely going to be covering the races of September 23rd on here on the thoroughbred side, but we're going to start with a very special segment. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatow, back with you from the little house on the east side, once again in front of this lovely cabinet of brown liquor. And if you're watching on YouTube and you want to catch the rest of the show, that's very easy. In the Money Media, wherever you get your podcasts, drop us a note. Let us know what you think is going to happen in these races this weekend, starting with the ones we're going to be talking about first with a man whose work you might know from the NAHU website. You might know it from the fantastic work he does covering standardbreds here on the In the Money Media Network, sometimes with Edison Hatter, sometimes by himself, sometimes with me. He's a good dude. He's my pal. He's Mike Pribozie. How are things, my man?
I'm great. I'm not. I'm coming from the apartment in near Johnstown, Pennsylvania. So I don't know if that's. I don't travel nearly as much as you, though.
It's a blessing and a curse. Mostly a blessing. It's a great thing to be able to follow these horses around, no matter what we're looking at in terms of breed. And this is one of these nights with standardbred racing that I think is fair to say that if you're somebody who likes wagering on horses, and even if you're more of a thoroughbred player in general, one that you're going to want to maybe take a little bit of extra attention to in terms of wagering opportunities as we look at this quartet of races from Harrah's Hoosier Park, which is actually on Friday night. So if you're listening to this show on podcast when it just dropped, we're talking about stuff that's going to be happening pretty soon. Is it fair to say that this is one that the thoroughbred fans should also be paying attention to?
Absolutely, because this year especially, Hoosier has the Breeders' Crown this year, so that's all the preps with thoroughbreds. Everyone's very familiar with Breeders' Cup and the horses going. And there's horses prepping for Breeders' Crown races that are coming up in a month or so, right at Hoosier Park. So I would think that you would want to pay attention to a lot of these horses are going to show up a month from now.
And if you want much more in-depth coverage than what we're providing here, you were involved in a little show last night. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we did the Harness Players podcast last night. It was a little NAHU rerun. It was Rod Adams Jr., Ray Catolo, and I. We went through all these. We had 9 stakes races we covered last night for the big night on Friday. We're very much in depth with all the races, and it's about an hour. It's a good show. Good listen.
Make sure you check that out. Ray, I should have name-checked him before. Does a fantastic job on our airwaves as well. We're going to do the sort of quick hit on 4 races. Again, really, talk to me like I'm a third grader kind of analysis here, as opposed to getting into the deeper jargon you'll hear later on this show for flat racing, or you'll hear on that on the Harness Players pod. We're starting off with race number 6, 1 mile trot here, the Kentuckiana Stallion Management 2-year-old filly stake. We got some serious money in the pot here, more than $250,000. How are we going to approach it from a wagering point of view?
Well, what's interesting about these, you start these Grand Circuit races is there's a lot of sire stakes that go on in many different states. So you have your PA sire stakes, your New York sire stakes, your New Jersey sire stakes. All those programs are finishing up, and a lot of these horses now are showing up in some of these bigger pot races. And you see some of these horses that maybe might be late bloomers, horses that are coming in that were sharp in those sire stakes races. This is a very difficult race, one of the better betting races on the card. I think it's difficult to determine who the favorite might be in the race. And there's horses that like Graceful Design, who locks a win, but has been facing tougher, has been on that Grand Circuit in the Doherty in the peaceful way. Horse like the 8 Ponda Title, I think that was in the Doherty last time, just missed to a horse named Sori Hanover. That horse is a Grand Circuit type horse. But this horse has raced at Hoosier and has been doing well in these Indiana sire stakes. I think that horse, the 8, Ponda Title, probably a big chance in this spot.
How do you figure, as a harness player, standardbred player, how these horses are going to class up when they're coming from one circuit to another? In theory, a tool like the Beyer Speed Figure is going to even that out for shippers in flat racing. What is the equivalent in this game?
All horses do get Trackmaster type ratings, but I'm not a huge fan of that. I think that you need to follow specific circuits and be familiar with different horses, especially the top end type horses. And that gives you a better indicator. With harness, class, I think, is more important than anything, even more than time. You really kind of need to be familiar with different circuits and the horses that they are facing. I think that gives you bigger clues on whenever they do come together, how well they're going to perform.
I love that. And it seems like it would reward the studious observer as opposed to somebody just looking at numbers. And I know what you're saying, just intuitively, that idea that we talk about in turf racing sometimes, where a horse will be quote unquote sucked along, a turf horse will be sucked along and run a better figure, but still, no threat in the race. I mean, that concept comes from harness racing, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And you see horses that are in a race, say they go a 50 mile and finish fifth, and they might have, finished in 51. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that those horses can go 51 whenever facing pressure in a harness race where they have to, do all the work, go up front. Sucked along is something that does happen quite a bit in harness racing. And horses can get checks that way, but whenever they're faced with having to go that time and do a lot of the work on their own, they're unable to do that.
Excellent. Recap for me who you like here in the sixth, and then we'll move on.
So I was 8, 5, and 6. I mean, that's a little bit of the morning line favorites there. It is a difficult race, though. I think that you can take shots there. There's other ways you can go. I know Ray liked a horse named Dozen. That's the 2 horse. This horse is coming out of the Excelsior races, which is sort of the second tier type sire stakes races in New York. But good connections, Marcus Melander, Scott Zeron. Those are the top connections in the sport, especially in the trotting world. This horse is 12-1 morning line. I think interesting. Ray did mention that one last night.
I like the idea. We're going to move on to a little bit later in the card. Is it the 8th race we're headed to next?
8th race, yes. Another 2-year-old. Actually, I'm sorry. I might have misinformed you.
I was worried about that one just when I saw the purse, but that's
the
okay.
ninth race is the correct race. The 9th race, yes. 9th race, another Kentuckiana Stallion Management, 200,000. This is 2-year-old fillies, actually.
Excellent. And what do we think about this one? We got a big field of 10 looking to go postward here.
A big field, and you're going to have a big favorite here, the 6 Lions Legend. And it's a horse that is 6 for 7 life, lost first time last time against a horse named Geocentric. And that's basically one of the top horses in the sport right now. Prior to that, had won 6 straight. This horse has been expertly managed in that PA Sire Stakes program, but this, I think, is a tougher spot. You have a lot of horses coming from a lot of different spots here, and a horse like the 1, Blue Pacific, only 2 lifetime starts, but was able to win that New Jersey Classic final on September the 8th. And another horse I thought was interesting is the 4, Comerica. And this is a Ron Burke type coming out of New York, has 6 different racetracks out of 8 starts, never been out of the money. So, and I do think the big track should suit that one.
Never been out of the money. I'm told that's good. We'll move on to the biggest of the big ones later in the card. Race number 12. We've got the Harrah's Hoosier Park Pacing Derby, 175,000 in the pot. And once again, we got 10 going postward in this spot. Generally speaking, how are you feeling about this race from a betting point of view with all these races on this card? Are you excited about this, or is this one, it's a big race and you're interested in checking it out, but don't necessarily have the strongest opinion?
Well, last year in this race, we had Bulldog Hanover break the track record, and a lot of, buzz was around, and everybody followed Bulldog wherever he went last year, and that brought a lot of eyes. Well, this year you have Bob the Missile, who's one of the top pacers in the sport. He is in this race, and he's 7 for 9 this year. He's probably the top open pacer, I think, right now. So it makes the race a little bit difficult to bet, I think, from a win standpoint. But I'm against the second choice, which will be Allywag Hanover, another top name in the sport. But I just think his form's a little inflated this year. I think that there are better chances for underneath types for exotics. Horses like Ponda Warrior, who won that Dan Patch here on August the 11th at 17-1. A horse called Hullabaloo the 5. That horse is 20-1 morning line. He's he's danced some big dances. He won the Borgata this year at 50-1. He's capable, I think, in big races. Those two, I think, are very interesting. And another horse, the 6, Little Rocket Man, likes this racetrack, has 13 wins this year, is capable of stepping up, especially on, against these horses. He's another one, 8-1 morning line. Those are the horses I think can fill out some exotics.
And, just like in flat racing, you can have a play that's much more based on playing a second horse, a second favorite out and getting still stuck into the favorite in the front. And just as you read through these stats and you hear about 13 starts on the year and 7 of 9, I feel like as a thoroughbred fan, you should get the idea that one of the great things about this game is being able to watch the stars of the sport run so many more times than we're accustomed to on the flat side. Let's talk about the Caesars Trotting Classic, race number 13, 210,000 in the pot. And unlike some of these races, this is another one where I feel like it's not exactly easy to know who's going to be the favorite. It seems like a favoritism could go any of a few ways. Are you looking at something lower in the market, or is this one where you might reach for a long shot?
I do think it's academic. The 7 will be the favorite here. This horse has had a fantastic season, has made over 600,000, has 7 wins, got stuck in a tough spot in the international trot. Now that's $1 million race at Yonkers that went on September the 9th. And a lot of horses from Europe came over in that race and basically dominated. This horse was bet in that race. He was 3-1 versus those horses and was stuck in a tough spot, made a huge move, just was unable to sustain it. He will be the favorite here. And some of the second and third choices, I think, have holes. Venerate's been chasing him all year. The last 2 starts, he ended up breaking on September the 2nd in that Maple Leaf Trot. He was in the international trot also, really never got into the race. That horse will be bad. And then a horse named Pretender, the 3-1 morning line. But this horse hasn't had the same class, especially this year, to face these types. So I think It's Academic will be tough on the top end. But underneath, I think there's another chance for prices again.
Pretender was the one I was thinking might vie for favoritism, but this is me. I'm showing my ignorance of the class levels in terms of something at a price underneath to maybe come in and get a piece under It's Academic for you. What numbers were you looking at?
Well, the 8 Rattle My Cage, I think, is probably a natural sort of exacta partner here for It's Academic. Just, he's been in big races all year. This is out of the Ox Vonstead barn. He's basically the top barn in the trotting world. And this horse ended up, he was 48-1 in that Maple Leaf Trot on September 2nd. Well, it changed his style. He typically likes to race up close to the pace, sat back, kicked 27-1 to be third at a big number. He fits versus these horses. And then the 9, loved by the masses. Another one has some back class, has made almost 800,000. Was off for quite a while with maybe some injury problems, but did come back and win on Hambo Day. He has some back class, and I think shipping here shows a lot of confidence. He's 15-1 morning line. Would not surprise me to hit the ticket.
One to get in there or work in there for sure. Before I let you go, let folks know where you can find more. Obviously, through our In the Money Media YouTube channel, you can find that Harness Players Pod with the deep dive on these races. But your work is fantastic. Where can folks see more of it?
Yeah, so I have some write-ups for these stakes races on NAHUpicks.com that I'll post tomorrow morning. And we have a lot of content there. Like I said, catch that Harness Players podcast, and I'll be doing the Mohawk show tonight, coming this weekend at Mohawk.
Fantastic. Lots of great content coming up if you want to get involved on the harness side of things. And there's a lot of reasons to. You're in great hands with the team over there, between Mike and Ray and the great stuff, obviously, that Edison does. Check it out. Subscribe to all the shows that they're doing. You can find it all on our what we call the Black feed for In the Money Media, or you can look individually and subscribe to those shows as well through the First Over with Edison Hatter feed. Mike, we'll be talking soon.
Can't wait.
Excellent. We thank Mike once again. We thank our partners who we've been so glad to work with at Harrah's Hoosier Park. And if you're watching on YouTube, this will be it. And if you're listening, we'll be back right after this.